This is augforums.com Real Talk, an unfiltered, independent perspective on Acumatica Cloud ERP. My name is Tim Rodman, and I want to mention 3 things in this pre-recorded intro before we get started. First, thank you to our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Paya. Paya offers Acumatica users a suite of industry-leading payment orchestration tools. Far beyond native Acumatica payments, Paya enables EMV, NFC terminals for counter sale. They offer a frictionless customer portal through their click-to-pay solution, and they support most e-commerce platforms and point-of-sale solutions used with Acumatica, such as One Retail and AcuPOS. And best of all, omni-channel reconciliation is available for all of their solutions. Our second sponsor is DataSelf. DataSelf Analytics is a revolutionary reporting solution that enables organizations to make the most informed decisions faster and easier than ever. It uniquely simplifies business intelligence, empowers anyone to build and access dashboards, and delivers critical business insight when and where you need it. Our third sponsor is 24/7 Digitize. 24/7 Digitize is an Acumatica bookkeeping service provider that helps derive the best value from your Acumatica investment by maintaining your books utilizing Acumatica's best practices and guidelines. Please take a minute to support this podcast by clicking each one of the sponsor banners located at augforums.com/sponsors. Our sponsors track clicks, and every click helps to support this podcast. The second thing I'd like to mention is that I'm always looking for victims. Guests. If you use Acumatica in any capacity, no matter how small, I'd love to talk with you. Check out augforums.com/podcast and click the link near the top of the page to learn more about being a guest on the podcast. Third and finally, I'd love to see you listed on my Rolodex. Check out augforums.com/Rolodex to find out who else is using Acumatica and read the instructions at the top to see how you can add yourself to the list. All right, that's it for the pre-recorded intro. Let's get started. Today is Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023, and this is episode number 109 with Adrian Radikovich, and we're going to be talking about advanced ARM financial reporting. Adrian, before we go any further, you can say your full name correctly, since I probably didn't get it exactly right.
Hi, I am Adrian Radikovich, and I'm located in Sydney, Australia, where I work for one of the biggest VARs here in Australia. And I do implementations and development for the more complicated clients. Actually, I'm originally from Europe, and I did my bachelor's and master's in computer science at Texas A&M University. So I'm also U.S. affiliated in a way, and I ended up living and working in Australia with down here it's MyOb. It's a white labeled version of Acumatica, and I've been doing that for 5.5 years now. And in the projects that I've been doing, all the implementations, one of the things that is recurring and always present is the financial reporting, the standard profit and loss, the balance sheet, sometimes the cash flow, frequently some custom reports. A lot of my clients are multi-company or multinational, so quite sophisticated level of reporting. And I usually spend in the beginning just days making those row sets for the reports. And if there's anybody who's done an ARM report in Acumatica knows, it is a pretty low level um, part of the system, which it runs beautifully. I love Acumatica. That's why I'm doing things on that framework. Uh, I think the flexibility and the ability to just change anything, add any part of code or new screens is better than any other ERP software I've seen anywhere. It's just that particular part of Acumatica, it's almost like working in assembly versus programming in C sharp. It's super low level. You got to list every row, manually set all the things, and then if you want everything to look the same, you got to set the right format and right flags on every single row, one at a time. Um, Even if you do it in Excel and then import from Excel, it's really time consuming to do. Um, my experience with that was mirrored when I talked to the other consultants in my company. And when I decided that I wanted to do something as an ISV, I was looking for an easy, well, easy. It wasn't easy. Let's put it that way. A quick, isolated part to start with. So if you write a whole new module, that's months of work, and then plus marketing and sales and all that. I thought picking something rather small and useful for any VAR would be a good starting point. So I got registered with Acumatica and I got the product certified. Um, and I personally have used it in several of my implementations since it's been created as a test. And there's actually two different ways that you can use the product. So one need that I identified is just put in the standard P&L balance sheet, have some kind of a really easy automated way to structure the report. And that's the interface is just a layer on top of the row sets. So it lets you build the report structure as a tree view in Acumatica, everything standard. And then it translates that tree, which links to the account classes. Um, from my experience, every client has some custom account class structure, which can be as simple as two levels, certain group and then account classes, or it can be as complicated as 4 or 5 level deep tree of this adds up to this, adds up to this, and then finally you have the final total on your P&L or balance sheet, and that is the part that it automates in that function that you can build your own. So it comes pre-built with styles. So style is a template. So you define how your level one row looks like, what font it is it bold or italic? Are there any lines between the rows? Is it shaded? So I've built several styles that, in my opinion, when you build it and you print it or save it to PDF, as most companies do, it looks really pretty, and it looks distinctive. So I have certain versions which are just based on indentation. Certain versions have different shaded lines. Certain versions have different shaded backgrounds, from lighter to darker. So you get through levels and it's really easy to see. Um, and then I also pre-built some structures that come with the customization package. So you can choose between the US style balance sheet or the Australian one. They're slightly different in 3 versus 2 groups. You can choose between a P&L that is based on like services more or products more. They're different styles. The EBITDA versus the more European style, I guess, report. And once you deploy that, then you go in and you just add your account classes. And I even made it so that any standard Acumatica account classes, like if you haven't deleted them, it automatically builds them into the tree already. So all you have to do is add just the custom account classes. And the moment you save that, it actually generates the row sets in the background. And those row sets go in the database and in the place where the standard row sets go. So if you go to the row set screen, everything looks like normal. You could even unpublish the customization to build it, and they will all work the same way. So it's not a change on the running the reports. It's a change where you don't have to manually create the row sets. And then it comes with some cool things like going to that report structure um, and changing the report style on it. And it will automatically update all the row sets. And you can go from one way to a completely different looking report, even though the structure is still the same. Um, and and I even put in the previews of what the reports look like, some examples as images. So as you're browsing the styles, you just look at the styles and then you can find the one that you like and apply it. So as a basic tool, it is meant to be deployed. You add some custom classes, you choose the style that you want, and you're done. It creates several versions of the balance sheet and P&L, everything that the Acumatica sales demo comes with, plus some nicer columns and all the header and footer things, pretty much everything you need to make it look really, really nice with all the information that is required. And in my experience, it saves me days of work. Um, and it takes literally deploy the package, publish the package, add the classes is a couple of minutes of work, save it, test the report, and there's nothing missing. Trying to find something, checking the total and seeing that your total doesn't match your account summary screen, and then trying to find which class did you miss, which line did you mark wrong, which formula in your summation is missing what row. It was very painful experience. Have you had something like that? Do you know
Oh,
what I'm talking
totally. Yeah, I have totally experienced that pain, and I love the what you have focused on because you have focused on a practical pain point. And at the past Acumatica Summit, I went to the hackathon and I did a podcast where I interviewed all the teams, and there were a few teams that were doing Chat GPT stuff. Right, everyone's thinking about the latest cool technology, but the the team that won, their solution was to be able to publish customization projects on a schedule at night. And I love that solution because it solved a practical pain point, right? So the ARM financial report writer is not like this amazingly cool brand new technology. It's using row sets and column sets just like the old FRX product did back in the 1980s, right? But it's a huge pain point, like you've already talked about, in that when I'm a consultant implementing a new customer, one of the first things I have to do is create financials so they can validate the data that I'm loading in. It's early on in the implementation. They're busy with so many other things. They don't have the time to learn the financial report writer, right? So they just want the consultant to do it for them. And oh, by the way, they realize those out of the box financials that they just expected to be there aren't there, right? So now they're in a position of having to pay the consultant for a day's worth of work that they weren't really wanting to. And your product now makes it easier for the consultant to create it faster and be able to focus back on more the value add side of the implementation rather than spending days on something that the client thought was going to be there out of the box, right? And so I love the pain point that you've zoomed in on. I've totally experienced it myself, and I think it's a pain point that every Acumatica VAR experiences on every single implementation, no matter what the industry is, because they all need to get financials early on in the implementation out of Acumatica.
All right. Um, in my in my company, the standard financial reports are included in the implementation, and depending on the complexity of the client and how many times they change their mind, it can be a significant component of my total implementation time. And it's just a repetitive thing that doesn't really feel like it's providing some competitive advantage to the client, but it's such a must. I've never had a client that said, "Oh, we don't need to run P&L and balance sheet in a way we used to in our previous ERP." So it's more, we want what we had, plus we want this, special P&L that will group this and this, and plus this and this management report. Um, and a lot of the times, we also install the Excel-based reporting. I can't remember what the name is.
Felixo?
Velixa, yes, it's part of the like standard offering in Australia now. And in there, you have to build the Excel formulas, and it. I'm not saying this is a replacement. That's the opposite of what I'm saying. This is something that goes along with it, in my opinion, because in there you can build really complicated Excel formulas. But anytime you need to change something, like if you add an account class or want to change the structure, it requires a lot of work to add those rows and formulas and everything in the right way, and then check that everything adds up and that you haven't missed anything. um, it's a different experience. So if you want really detailed, complicated custom formulas, then Velixa is definitely the solution for you. Um, if you're looking to run the standard, uh, really quickly to build, and where the second use comes in quickly to change. So if I want to reorder things, I literally go in, I move my account class from this group to that group, save it, and it rebuilds the report, and everything is 100%. And it checks that everything has been included, it throws the warnings, and it does all that work for you. And making the change, the maintenance of those reports, it just goes from, you have to find, you got to move change the row code on row 131 to
Right.
be, something that comes before row 121, and then update the summation formulas for the subtotals. And if you're not really careful and paying a lot of attention, it breaks, and it's a really painful thing to do. So
It's
that
definitely mind-numbing work, right? I mean, you're it's so tedious. And
exactly.
if yeah, you could fall asleep doing it sometimes.
So it makes it easier. Plus, uh, from my experience, the client tells you, "Here's the structure we want." It gives you an example Excel. Um, you go and you build it, and then you show it to the client first UAT, and they usually go, "Oh, actually, can you move this here?" It's just, just move these couple of lines over here, and it's not a big deal, right? And you have to go, yeah, yeah, sure, no problem. But the reality is, it is a big deal. You can easily spend a couple hours getting it right. So that part has also been considered when I was dealing with it. And finally, sometimes they'll just go that this is ugly. Can you make it prettier? Can you indent this, or can you add these lines here? And they have no idea that you have to add. If you have 100 rows, you have to add 200 lines onto the row sets. So it the simplest things, when you're going to that lowest level of detail, get to be hard.
Oh, I totally agree, and I've totally experienced that pain. And what I'm thinking of right now is an analogy that I like to use with report writers, and that is the difference between working with clay or working with concrete. I like Excel because it feels like I'm working with clay. I can build something and then I can change it fairly easily. When I'm working with Report Designer, I'm working with concrete. I build a report and the concrete hardens. When someone wants it to change, oh, I want it grouped just by customer instead of by item. I have to get out the jackhammer to break it down and re-pour the concrete. ARM, financial report writer, I feel like is similar to report designer. To make a simple change, it's like having to bust up the concrete and re-pour the mold, right? Your solution sounds more like a working with clay type of solution. And also like your point earlier about Velixo. Even though Excel is great and like working with clay, I've always seen Velixo as more of a supplement, not a replacement to the ARM financial report writer. People still want to be able to run their basic reports out of Acumatica, right? And be able to allow anyone to just do it within the system. It's that you don't get away from that. Although I think a lot of VARs have used Velixo as a complete replacement for ARM because it's such a nightmare to work with, right? But I really think that ARM is great for the basic financial reports. Excel is good for the more advanced stuff with Velixo. You just need to make ARM more usable, which it sounds like you have done with your product.
Yeah, and one of the advantages of the built-in financial reports is that you can just jump in and run it, save it as a PDF, or print it and give it to the owners, the shareholders, ASX, or that's the stock exchange here in Australia, um, or the management. Just quick look, saves to PDF, looks pretty, which is harder to do with Excel. And a lot of times you don't need some really complicated formula that calculates something as a percentage of something as a percentage of something. um, ARM is pretty powerful. It's not on the level with Excel, nowhere near, but it's powerful enough to do most of your common reports. And that's another thing that I try to incorporate. You can create the report, and then if you want to add a line that's it shows additional percentage, percentage of this revenue as of the total revenue. If you insert that line into the row set, it will preserve, like if it's reflecting the account classes or the report structure, it will actually preserve it through the updates. It will move things around, and it will keep that percentage pointing to the right line as well. So I was really trying to make it cover as many bases as possible.
There's a couple things I wanted to verify my understanding on. First one was this is deployed as a customization project, so it is fully inside of Acumatica, right? It's not an
Yes,
outside
correct.
tool.
It's 100% Acumatica, and Acumatica framework. I love that framework. It's mind-bendingly complicated to learn it. It took me, I don't know how many months, but it was quite an experience. But once you learn it, you can do really complicated things with just a couple of lines of code. The trick is knowing which lines of code and how to do it. Um, So it's kind of like black magic, you know. Once you know it, you can do so much so quickly. But getting to that point is, going through the black belt training to get there before you can do even the simplest things in there. So really challenging, but really rewarding framework from my
That is a
experience.
really good description of the Acumatica framework. That's spot on. You were telling me too before we hit record that you worked on some multi-year project for a billing customization that then got sold to Maya.
No,
Tell
no,
us more about that.
so Moab actually hired my company to implement and develop Acumatica for Moab themselves. So they actually run all the billing for all the Acumatica customers down here, plus two additional desktop products that were they already owned previously. And we it was about a 2 year project. We did all the data migration and implementation and development, adding the licensing components and the billing components. And it it does, I don't know how many thousands, but they have thousands of customers, even on Acumatica now, their version of Acumatica, which is called Mild Advanced down here, and plus several thousands of the other customers, and replaced a really old Oracle CRM slash billing system that they had in place. So it was quite interesting. It was I was part of a 2 member team, and we did pretty much everything, including design and development of those modules. So it's really nice to see somebody using their own products. When they say that they're really awesome, this is a really good ERP. It can do everything you need. And then you implement it yourself. And I think uh, the description that they were using is eating your own dog food, which is
Right.
apparently a saying that I must say I've never heard before. But that's how it worked, and everything was as I expected. Everything is working still. Everything was handled pretty well. Like, we didn't have any major problems. Down here, it runs on MySQL instead of the Microsoft SQL Server. So it's an additional challenge to get things that have a lot of data to run quickly. You have to explicitly add some database indexes because it just can't handle it automatically like the Microsoft SQL can. But in the end, if you do everything right and do some volume testing, add the indexes in the right way, it works just as fast.
Interesting. Yeah, so you're not just speaking from someone who went through the Acumatica University courses and took a couple years to get your black belt. You're speaking from experience on many real projects. Talked about even discovering this pain point was just from implementations, but then you've even worked on some a pretty extensive project there that really got you into the guts of how Acumatica works. And I just think that that combination of understanding the real world pain point that you've experienced on implementations and then the technical real world experience that you have puts you in a pretty unique position. And again, I love that you are deploying that expertise on the financial report writer because everyone needs it. It's not just manufacturers or distributors or construction companies. It's a piece of Acumatica that everyone relies on. So props to you for not just making a cool technical product, but finding a, a real world pain point. um, I had a second thing I wanted to confirm my understanding on, and that is, I think you said if I heard correctly, that when you're building the row set using your layer on top of the financial report writer, that you'll actually catch if you forgot to include a GL account, which is a big pain point with Felixo and any type of Excel tool, because you might be missing something and you don't realize it. Did I hear that correctly?
It works on the account class level at this time. So I did consider being able to select specific GL accounts to go into specific places in the report. Um, but I kind of stopped short there. If I find interest for it, I'm happy to add that. But at this time, it checks the account classes. So if you don't include something, it will give you a warning. It sorts them. It puts the ones that are not assigned to any report groups on top and throws that standard yellow warning, and says this account class has accounts that are active and have data, and you haven't included it on your report. So it helps you make sure that everything is assigned. Yes.
To me, that's even better because, yeah, especially for, I feel like your use case, I feel like your audience, in my opinion, is primarily consultants who need to deploy those ARM reports as quickly as possible and as early as possible in the implementation. After you've been running on Acumatica for a few years, if you're the customer, you could just spend the extra time to make the changes. To me, it's still got a use case there, but the real compelling part is VARs who are just trying to get through implementations. And so at that stage, you want to be depending on the account class, in my opinion. If you go off and start individually doing GL accounts, you just make it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. So I like that. And I like that you're giving the warning if you haven't included certain account classes. What about the flip side of that? What if you put an account class in twice? Do you get some kind of warning that you might have duplicated the data?
Well, you can't do that because it lists the account classes and asks you to assign them, and you can't insert new account classes. It goes off of what's in the system.
Okay. So I can't add like an account class higher up on the report and then accidentally add it again further down the report.
Nope.
Okay.
You get
Oh,
a
I like
list of
that.
account classes that you assign to. So it's three. It's actually three parts on that main screen. And on the left, you have the tree where you can add report groups on any level, um, as many as you want. Well, I take it back. I think the limit is 6 levels because of the number of characters limitation in your row set codes. Um, but if you need more than 6 levels, I think you're doing something wrong. Or I guess you could increase the database field. It gets really, really complicated. You're doing something super high level, which is very custom. And, I can assist with that. It can be done, but you probably shouldn't be doing it. Then in the middle screen, you have the list of the account classes and you assign them to the groups. And I made that again as quick and easy as possible. So you can do it in two ways. You either select the drop down of which report structure it belongs to for each class, which is also displayed, or you literally select the tree that you want to add it, and you tick the select box, and it inserts or like updates that field that it belongs to that report. So when you load it up, it comes first installation. It will assign all the account classes that are standard from Acumatica to where it usually goes. And then you can click through, select the first group, tick, 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 the account classes that you want, the next one, tick, 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 as you go through all the report levels, which is usually not that many. And it's probably like a 2 minute exercise of ticking the account classes and saving. And you can't duplicate it. And if you have anything left over at the end, you just need to tick it. Like you haven't ticked everything. And the third section is just for information at this point in time, but it shows the currently selected account class. It shows you the accounts in it, because a lot of times the account class name is given to you by the client is not the most intuitive. So you're like wondering, what the hell is this account class? Where do I put it? Where is that structure? Does it make sense? Kind of thing. So you can easily see which accounts belong to it as you're clicking through. And you're like, okay, that makes sense. Or this really doesn't make sense that it belongs here. Let me double check with the client, and it reduces the amount of rework later. Even though that rework is now again just untick or tick here, and that's it.
Wow, that sounds so much better than building a row set from scratch. What about anecdotal evidence here? You might not have hard data at this point, but just from your personal experience and from experience of others who have been using this down there in Australia. I think you said earlier you feel like it saves you days worth of work. Is that, if I'm a VAR in implementation and I throw in financials as part of the implementation, do you feel like is that what it is? You feel like you're saving days worth of work? Is it like 15 to 20 hours? What's your best guess there?
Uh, it really depends on the clients, right? If you're dealing with I had some clients that are in fund management or construction, and they have 50 plus companies. I had some that were hundreds of companies, and they want to see the report structured or split up in certain ways, in different versions, multiple versions usually. This is definitely days worth of saving. If you're dealing with a small stock based client, that has a limited number of account classes, you're probably saving hours of work, because from my experience, even if there's really no training required. You literally go to that screen. You have the report structure on the left. You have your list of kind of classes in the middle, and you select the report structure and you tick the classes that belong there, and that's it. Like it's not like Velixo requires training, learning the formulas and how to structure it, and then you get to save the templates and things. This is the opposite of that. This is the super quick. You could do it in 10 minutes and have reports that look nice, that look very pretty out of the box, that are fully reconciled, that are um, all the versions that require, the monthly view versus the previous month to this month to year to date to previous year to date. So it's all pre-built. The column sets are also included in the customization package. So it creates the reports with the column sets and the row set that are column sets are filled in. The row sets are blank when you start. And then as you assign the account classes, the row sets are filled in automatically. And then you have a complete ARM report set.
Oh, I didn't realize that about the uh, column set. You actually have some pre-built ones. Interesting. So that's additional above what you
Yep.
see in the demo database. Okay.
I try to make it
Oh,
a
cool.
complete package where you literally go in 10 minutes later, you have, at least one version of P&L and balance sheet that are ready to be representable, to be given to the owners or shareholders of the company.
I like that. I like your point too about the styles because it's not really an apples to apples comparison. It's not just that, hey, I saved 8 hours worth of work in creating the financials. I'm talking about like on the super smallest one, right? You might only save 8 to 10 hours worth of work, but it's not a total apples to apples comparison because with your styles, you're now producing something that looks much nicer than you normally would have produced in your 8 to 10 hours because you're so exhausted after building the row set manually. You just don't care about the styles. You just want the numbers to be in there, right? And having a nice looking financial statement is a win, right? And at that, especially at that stage in the implementation, you want as many wins as you can get because it's those little things that kind of keep someone motivated to keep going through the pain of the implementation. And so I like your styles point. It's not just about making it faster. You're producing something that looks nice, and most people just don't take the time to do that because they already spent more time on it than they wanted to spend, right?
Exactly. So I, in addition to my master's in computer science, I also have an MBA. So one of the things that I remember, one of the courses was you get to meet the basic requirements, but nobody's excited about that. It's just expected. And then if you can, in addition to that, provide the exciting factor on top of that, that's what I kind of was trying to go for here. So you get the requirement, which is build my row sets, right? But then in addition to that, you have a library of styles to choose from, how it's going to look like, and the ability to quickly and easily change that. And you also have the column sets that are pre-built. So you have a list of reports, the balance sheet, monthly balance sheets, comparative, just simple balance sheet, just all the standard things that other ERP software comes with usually. Um, and I thought that was kind of missing from the standard Acumatica, the blank deployment. It is part of the sales demo if you run the sales demo from Acumatica, but those reports are, I wouldn't call them pretty. um, and they're functional, but it's not something that you would show to a prospect and they will go, oh yeah, this looks better than what we had. So adding that little bit on top is, I think, a way to provide more value than just saving the time. So you're saving the time, and it looks better than the standard ones.
I completely agree. Makes a lot of sense. I have one more technical question before I wanted to talk like, more of the big picture side. Uh, is this only for, 'cause what made me think of it is you talked about a construction company. Is this only work for the general ledger or does it also work for the project ledger reporting?
A general ledger at this time.
Okay, that's fine. And again, that hits the entire base of Acumatica customers, right? Not everyone's using the
Yes.
project ledger. Makes sense. Okay. Now, I should mention at this point, I will put a link on the episode page at augforums.com/ episode 109 to your official uh, Acumatica marketplace entry. So you have paid the money, the big money, to be an official ISV product. You're certified. On that page is a nice demo video. You look like you're really going for it with this thing here.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Uh, yeah, I figured this is a good thing to learn everything you need to be a proper Acumatica ISV. And I got some ideas for some other products, um, but this is a really good starting point in my opinion.
I agree. Sounds really cool. I like that you're focused on the usability. Let's talk maybe a little bit about the licensing, which you might not have all these details, but one thing I'm wondering. I think your main audience for this is a VAR because of what we've talked about already. But how are you thinking to license this? Is it per VAR? Is it per Acumatica instance? Is it a one-time fee? Is it a ongoing fee? Give us your thoughts there.
Uh, the product has built-in um, activation, so it is linked to the site that is installed on. Requires an activation code. As for the financial side, I'm I'm really open. So any VAR that is interested, um, they can try it out for free. I'm happy to do it with them on the call or give them a demo license. Once they want to start using it and selling it or including it in the implementation with the clients or upgrading certain clients that don't have good reports and are willing to pay for that. I'm really open. Is it a monthly, yearly, per site? I don't know. I think per site would probably be the easiest and most fair one. Like how many times you use it, and then it makes it um, cost effective, right? Because if you try to come up with some monthly or yearly fees or per consultant, different VARs work at different speeds. A small implementation is, probably 2 3 months, and you can have them live. So if you're dealing with those, you get a lot of live sites per year. Bigger ones can go, a year or two. So it really depends on the needs, and you don't use that product um, other than taking them live. If you want to maintain it, we can come up with the license for that as well. Or I had one client where actually they wanted to do frequent changes themselves. So you could even license it and charge the client monthly to be able to do that instead of asking the VAR to keep updating the reports. And I know it kind of sounds like you'd be taking away from your billable work, but I've not met any consultant who wants to be doing the row sets. So, if you come up with a fee for your client that evens that out, you're still winning your head.
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah, it's not, even if you are charging by the hour for it, it's not high value work. You have more important things to do in the
Exactly.
implementation.
And you're not providing um, any kind of competitive advantage to the client. You're, again, just meeting a basic need that every company has.
Agreed. Totally agreed. Yeah, so it sounds like, you're well known down there in the MyOb advanced space in Australia, not as well known in the US, but it sounds like you're very flexible in terms of what people might want to do licensing wise. Licensing it per site makes total sense to me. And yeah, you're just open to talking to Acumatica VARs here in the U.S. Sounds like, or anywhere, right? It doesn't have to be in the U.S.
True.
Europe, I know Acumatica is growing quite a bit there. Africa, especially South Africa, Acumatica's had a good presence in for quite a while. Asia, so yeah, you've got a product that, again, I've said it many times, but it's a big deal that you you can reach any Acumatica customer. It's not a narrow swath of customers. Anyone using Acumatica, in my opinion, could benefit from your product. Well, cool. Adrian Radikovich, if I got it right that time. Thanks
Yes.
for taking the time. I know it's after midnight there in Australia, so I don't want to keep you on too much longer. Any other final thoughts you want to share before we wrap it up?
Uh, no, I guess I just wanted to say in your latest post, I noticed you're working on a SQL product where you can run SQL and then get the data back. And I love the idea. So when you have something running, yeah, I'd be interested.
Okay, I'll add you to my list. Well, it's funny you bring that up because your product to me feels very similar to the Tim Sequel product, in that it's one of those like just practical things that is not mind blowing from a technical standpoint, but it's just a big missing piece. And so, yeah, I think we think similarly on looking for pain points and solving them simply. So maybe we can pair our offering maybe down the road in the future. We'll have to talk about that.
Sounds interesting. And it it was actually more technically challenging than you would think. Because if you have a big report with lots of account classes and um, board groups, it got to be slow. Like regenerating all those rows, and it can go into thousands. It was taking a couple of minutes. So I had to kind of think outside the box, and in the end, I got it running in literally a couple of seconds. But it was technically challenging, which is not what I expected.
Yeah, I get the sense that you know what you're doing and you would not be satisfied with a vaporware type of a product, that you've
Yeah.
really thought through the details, performance, et cetera. And this is a go to market solution, that you just people just need to find out about it. So I'm glad we started that here, and I look forward to continuing to help you reach a broader audience than you've hit so far.
Oh, thank you.
And I'll let you get to sleep. Thanks again, taking the time, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. Well, that's it for now. We'll catch you on the next episode of AUGforums.com Real Talk. Thanks for listening, and take care.